I think for the church of 21st century, we really need to rethink about how we engage in world globalization. Even as late as, let's say, 30, 40 years ago, there was a very distinct role that the Western church played in a world globalization. We sent out missionaries, we sent out resources, so that less developed countries can receive those both missionaries and resources for the work of evangelization and so forth. But as Jenkins and others have noted, now the churches in the developing countries, particularly in the South, are not only growing vibrantly, but they're sending out missionaries themselves to other locations, including to the United States. And so in this changing context, and particularly church in North America, how do we think about missions? And I would like to emphasize that we need to now be more seeing ourselves not just simply as sending churches, but as a church that needs to be thinking about more collaboratively about the world evangelization. How do we partner with now these growing churches in Southern Hemisphere so that they, along with us, can become more effective in our partnership of the gospel? I mean, here's a good example. One of the latest studies indicate that the churches in the United States now spend about half of their mission budget annually on their short-term mission trips. Now, I am glad that many churches are engaged in short-term mission trips, but often the goal is so that our Christians in our churches would use this short-term mission trip experience to really grow in their ability to see what God is doing in the world. And that is a worthy goal. But what if we're spending half of our annual mission budget to not only enrich our own members who are going out to short-term missions and do some good out there working with orphanage and painting walls and whatnot, but be more strategic about building the churches that are growing over there. I think there are ways to do our short-term missions in more collaborative way so that over the years it would not just benefit our churches, but really benefit many of the churches that are growing in our southern parts of the global world. Another thing that I would like to emphasize, and you mentioned the Flat World and other books that are talking about globalization, I think we're moving into an era where it's hard to make a boundary between home mission and missions abroad. What I mean is that we have so many people groups that are now moving about. Migration of population groups is very, very significant. In fact, Dean Tienu of a Trinity Evangelical Divinity School recently informed the faculty members here that more number of Africans have come from Africa to the United States last 3 decades than the number of slaves that were brought onto North America during 19th century slavery trade. I mean, that sort of data really changes our perspectives. And here we have a number of African nation groups that are now settling in the United States. And by the way, many of them are Christians. And they're starting their own churches. And what if our churches in North America learn to really partner in a very significant way with these different immigrant congregations that are starting up from Africa, Latin America, Asia, so that they could more effectively reach out to the unchurched people groups in their own diaspora communities. So as we think about world globalization, I would like to emphasize that we really need to look more prayerfully about the different opportunities that are available in our own backyard, in our own metropolitan areas.